As I was sitting on the couch with my arm draped across the back, I could feel something touching my hand. I'm Tom Stewart, and this is my paranormal story. Before I start this episode, I want to give a huge heartfelt thank you to everyone who reached out to me about my last episode. All your kind messages of love and condolences for the loss of my mom really meant a lot to me. Her loss is something I'm still recovering from and probably will be for a long time. And before I get started with this episode about my investigation of the Bradley Playhouse on Halloween night, I want to tell you a quick story about my mom and perhaps some proof that our loved ones are indeed watching over us even after they pass. About a year or so before my mother passed away, she gave me a box with a bunch of family heirlooms in it. They had been passed down to her by her parents and elders, and she wanted to pass them down to me. As I went through the items, one of them caught my eye. It was an antique gold pocket watch from the early 1900s that once belonged to my great-uncle Joe, my mother's uncle. She told me to hang on to it for a while, but since I don't have any children of my own to pass it down to, she said if I ever found myself in a jam and needed some extra money to just sell it. So I kept that pocket watch in a safe place for some time. But after my mom died, I figured I might as well list the pocket watch on eBay and see if it sells. And months went by with no one showing any interest in buying it, and I ended up forgetting I even had it up there. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, I found myself at the car repair shop getting a new inspection sticker for my SUV when I received some bad news from the mechanic. I was going to need to replace a lot of things on my vehicle in order for it to pass inspection. And it was going to be expensive. And like most people, I had a small panic attack. I most definitely didn't have that much money to spend on repairs at that time. I sat there in the waiting room contemplating what to do. I had just enough money in the bank to cover the repairs, but I surely wouldn't have enough money left over to pay the rent at the end of the month. So I sat there in despair, thinking that this is one of those situations where my mom would have helped me out. She would have definitely swooped in with a credit card and helped me pay for the repairs and would have let me pay her back later. But she's not here anymore. Or so I thought. As I was sitting there in the waiting room, absolutely devastated by what was happening, suddenly I got a notification on my cell phone. I looked down, and it was a message from eBay that I had just made a sale. When I opened the app, I was blown away to see that someone had just literally, at that moment, purchased my great-uncle's pocket watch from me for full price. I guess you could call that a coincidence, but I'm convinced this was somehow my mother helping me out in a time of need from the other side, just like she always used to. Anyway, I just thought you might enjoy hearing about that. And again, thank you all for your kind messages. I also want to do one more thank you to everyone who helped out with our fundraiser for Andrea Perrin. If you don't know, Andrea is a friend of mine who is very involved in the paranormal field. If you've ever seen the movie The Conjuring, that movie is about her family that lived in the real house that the movie is based on. Andrea is the oldest daughter, if you recall the movie. Anyway, Andrea has had some medical issues she's been dealing with lately, a battle with cancer that she's winning, and we wanted to send her some financial support by doing a fundraiser for her. So a bunch of us got together for a night of spirits and laughs to raise money. Psychic medium Maureen Hancock donated her time and did a 1-hour gallery reading for the attendees. And I and my friend Scott Higgins, we both performed stand-up comedy afterwards. There were also lots of amazing raffle prizes donated to the fundraiser. from people like Jason Hawes and Dustin Perry and John Zaffis, Cody and Satori, Rise Up Paranormal, and several other paranormal teams and haunted locations. It was a hugely successful night, and if you bought tickets or you made a donation, I send you a huge thank you. And I also want to thank Lorna from the Alley Theater in Middleborough, Massachusetts, for donating a space for us to hold the fundraiser. It was a great time had by all. Okay, now that I got all of that out of the way, here is my latest episode. Quick side note, this episode is going to include actual recordings that I made while investigating, and some of them may be difficult to hear. So if you can, use headphones to get the full effect. I'll also add each audio clip to the blog section on my website, myparanormalstory.com, so that you can go back and analyze them even closer if you'd like. I don't get too many chances to go out and investigate haunted locations these days, but I love it when I do. And last year, on Halloween night, I was invited to investigate the Bradley Playhouse in Putnam, Connecticut. My good friend and fellow stand-up comedian Scott Higgins has a relationship with the people who run the theater, and he arranged for us to have it all to ourselves on Halloween night. It was just a small group of us, alone in this haunted theater. There was Scott, myself, Ace Aceto, which is Scott's co-host on the podcast Behind the Funny, and another comedian friend of ours, Carolyn Plummer. Plus, Scott's daughter and her friend were with us, and one other special guest that surprised me. My wife, Ames. This was the first time my wife has ever come with me on a paranormal investigation. I've always asked, but she's always seemed too afraid to go. But I think my passion might be growing on her. Or perhaps she was just in the Halloween spirit that night. Either way, it was great to have her with us. Now, the Bradley Playhouse is an old theater. It was built in 1901 and has gone by several names over the years, like the Putnam Opera House, the Imperial, Putnam Theaters, and now the Bradley Playhouse, named for Ransom Bradley, the man who first built it. And it has hosted hundreds, if not thousands, of different variety shows, plays, musicals, movies, and more. And this actually wasn't my first time at the Bradley Playhouse. In fact, I've been there several times over the past years as a performer. As I mentioned, Scott has a great relationship with the managers, and he books a comedy night at the theater several times a year. And I've been lucky enough to be included on a few of those shows. And even just being there as a stand-up comedian, I could tell that this playhouse had a story to tell. But I love old theaters. I mean, all of them, especially ones with haunted histories, which is most of them, it seems. And the Bradley is no exception. The most commonly mentioned sighting at the Bradley Playhouse is the ghost of a woman who is often seen walking or sitting in the balcony. Some believe her name is Victoria, and she's been seen wearing a white or a blue flowing dress. There have also been claims of unexplained footsteps, whispers in people's ears while standing backstage. Other people have reported being touched, and other reports of things like cold spots and flickering lights. The theater has been investigated by several paranormal teams over the years, including the original TAPS team on the TV show Ghost Hunters back in 2005. Our night began with the 7 of us chatting in the lobby, eating some snacks and talking about our game plan for the night. Eventually, we headed out into 2 teams. I started up in the balcony with Ames and Carolyn, while Ace headed down into the dressing rooms with Scott's daughter and her friend. Scott, unfortunately, had just had hip surgery and couldn't get around too well, so he just stayed in the lobby. On our first session in the balcony, the 3 of us sat in different seats in 2 different sections. The theater was pretty dark, and the air felt thick, perhaps from the heat or from being up so high. Or maybe because we were the only people in a 300-seat theater. The chairs squeaked as we sat down, facing the empty stage with dozens of empty seats in front of us. My goal, while in the balcony, was of course to keep my eyes open for any apparitions of women in white dresses, but also to see if I could get any responses from a spirit or two. I was recording everything with my digital audio recorder, hoping to catch some EVPs. For those who aren't familiar, EVP stands for Electronic Voice Phenomena. It's when a spirit is somehow able to imprint their voice onto a recorder, usually in response to a question. And we tried many different questions during this session, like, is your name Victoria? Did you used to work at the theater? Were you a performer on one of the shows? Stuff like that. But unfortunately, I didn't get any responses on my recorder. However, I did ask a few times if someone could knock or make a sound to let us know that they were there. And we not only heard some strange knocks, but I also caught them on my recorder. Here's what they sounded like. Is that you making sound? Can you do it again? I heard that. Here it is again. I heard that. After our session in the balcony, we took a quick break in the lobby and then switched locations. Ace and the girls went to the balcony, while Ames, Carolyn, and I went downstairs to the dressing rooms. The dressing rooms are located in the basement, directly under the stage. The ceilings were low, and there wasn't a lot of space. As you walk down the stairs, you quickly find yourself in a hallway with 3 to 4 dressing rooms on each side. The hallway was brightly lit, and as we walked down, we could see into each of the dressing rooms, most of which were dark with mirrors and assorted chairs and couches. And at the end of the hallway, there was another staircase heading back up to the stage, and to the right was a strange sliding door. It was a big heavy door on a weight and pulley system, very old and peculiar. It took some effort, but I was able to slide the door open, and it led into a deeper and lower section of the basement. It was very dark and musty and filled with all sorts of old props and sets from what I could see with my flashlight. I was afraid to go in at first, thinking that the door might not open again once we were on the other side. So I grabbed a chair and propped it open so the 3 of us could safely go in to investigate. Almost the entire room was filled floor to ceiling with piles of old stuff that probably hadn't been used in years. The walls, from what I could tell, were made of stone, part of the original foundation, I think. And the ceilings had pipes and ductwork all around. This was indeed the belly of the beast in this theater. I decided to walk down one of the makeshift aisles by myself, in between all the old decorations and artifacts, and it felt like I was in a whole different place. Every step I took made a crunchy sound that echoed off the walls as I walked through decades of dust and dirt. As I approached the other end of the room, quite a distance away from the door where Ames and Carolyn were, I, for some reason, got the feeling that I wasn't alone. So I turned on my EMF detector, which is a device that lights up anytime electromagnetic fields fluctuate, and I pressed record on my audio recorder, and I started asking questions. I asked the spirit if it could make the EMF detector light up for me. And to my surprise, while reviewing the audio later, I found an EV response to my question. 2 responses, actually. Here's what it sounded like. Can you come over here to this green light? Can you make that device light up some more? To me, it sounds like a female voice saying, "I can," and then saying, "Maybe." Here it is again, enhanced. What do you think it's saying?
Can you come over here to this green light? Can you make that device light up some more?
I walked around the sub-basement storage area for a while longer, but I didn't catch any more voices, but there certainly were many strange sounds. Eventually, I made my way back down the hallway in the dressing room area and decided to sit down on one of the couches in a dressing room. Ames and Carolyn were still at the other end, so I was basically by myself sitting on an old leather couch in a dressing room with only the light peering in from the hallway through the curtain in the doorway. I switched on my EMF detector again and pressed record on the audio recorder, and I started asking questions again. I sat there with one arm stretched out along the top of the couch, and for some reason, again, I got that feeling that I wasn't alone. I continued to ask questions, hoping for a response, when suddenly it felt like something or someone touched my hand. I calmly clicked on my flashlight with the other hand to see if maybe there was a spider or something crawling on me, but there was nothing there. That's when I asked out loud, "Was that you touching my hand?" That's when you can hear in the background Ames and Carolyn hustling up the stairs in reaction to me being touched. They just left me there. Anyway, here's the audio I recorded from that incident.
Can you come into this dressing room? Can you tell me your name? Were you in one of the performances here? Was that you touching my hand?
After I finished up in the dressing room, I met up with everyone back in the main lobby again for a short break. We all took turns investigating different sections of the theater a few more times, but not much else happened. So we decided to wrap up the investigation by doing one more EVP session on the main stage with all 6 of us. And Scott, who was able to hobble down to the front row, was able to join us from a distance. On the side of the stage, there was a small table with a few chairs and stools around it, so we all sat there together. As usual, I had my EMF detector and audio recorder going, and we all took turns asking questions, hoping to record some EVPs or knocking sounds or something. After about 15 minutes or so, with nothing eventful happening, a couple of us suddenly noticed a light turn on from the other side of the stage. It was a motion light on the back stairs that lead down to the dressing room. This light only comes on when someone or something moves past it. And we were all sitting at the table. Scott was in the front row. So who or what could be making this light turn on? Of course, I immediately rushed over to investigate, with Ace following right behind me. We started asking questions. Is someone down there? Was that you who turned on the light? But there was no response. So I sort of gave up and went back to the table, but Ace kept on recording and asking questions. At one point, he said he could hear what sounded like whispering, or maybe even someone singing downstairs. He checked it out, but obviously there was no one there. This definitely got my attention. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to catch anything, or any singing, or any sounds on my recorder. But later that night, when Ace was reviewing his audio, he heard something startling. And when he played it for me, I was startled too. This is one of the creepiest things I've ever heard recorded during an investigation. We didn't hear it with our ears, only on the recorder. But it was recorded while we were standing next to the stairs with the motion light. I'm going to play it for you, and I'm not saying it's paranormal, but I'll let you decide. Here it is. My Paranormal Story is written, produced, and narrated by me, Tom Stewart. Music from this episode courtesy of Kevin MacLeod at Incomptech.com. Thank you to Scott Higgins for inviting me on this investigation. You can check him out along with his co-host Ace Aceto on their podcast called Behind the Funny. Also, if you get a chance, check out my other comedian friend and now paranormal investigator Carolyn Plummer. She performs stand-up comedy all over the New England area, and she's very funny. And of course, I want to thank my wife, Ames, for joining me on the investigation. We had a lot of fun, and she did an awesome job. I also want to thank the Bradley Playhouse for trusting us with their beautiful establishment for the night. You can check them out at thebradleyplayhouse.org. Again, if you want to hear the recordings from this investigation, just visit my website at myparanormalstory.com. I'll be posting them in the blog section. Now, if you enjoy my stories and would like to support the podcast, please visit the website and click on the donate button. I never charge or do Patreon or anything like that. So if you want to support me, that would be great. I also have t-shirts and coffee mugs for sale too. Because unfortunately, podcasts do cost money, and your support helps me keep this podcast running. You can also check out my book called The 10 Best Tools for Ghost Hunting. If you've ever wanted to learn more about the gadgets used in paranormal investigation, you can check it out on Audible, Kindle, or Amazon.com. And please help my podcast grow by sharing your favorite episodes with your friends on social media. And feel free to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for My Paranormal Story. If you have a podcast and would like to have me as a guest, or if you'd like to ask me a question, or tell me your paranormal story, you can email me at myparanormalstorypodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. I'm Tom Stewart, and this is My Paranormal Story.